Board Games was nothing more than just a web series about playing board games. Started off very innocent, but the Dream Phone episode was where it really opened the doors into the horror genre.
The fact that the phone is following him around, it turned it into a horror thing, and which led into the whole third season of Board Games. So that's really where the whole horror element began. There was a little bit of that earlier on with Mr. Bucket, but I think Dream Phone was where it really ramped up.
After Dream Phone, I figured that was it. That was the end of the series. I thought it was a good way to end it.
It was my favorite episode of the series, and not only that, but one of my favorite web videos I've ever done, so I was happy to leave it off right there, just kind of like let it go, and maybe not necessarily the final one, but at least to take a long break from it. And during that time, I came up with lots of fresher ideas. That episode really showed a different side to the character. So I came up with ideas on how to continue the series and continue it with the basic idea of it being reviews of board games, but also it has like this whole added element to it of this character being psychologically disturbed in some way. Let's play a game. I don't get to play very much anymore, and I've been bored, very bored. And when Board James is bored, I play some board games. You like board games, right? And I wanted to do the series in 2014. I wanted to continue it there, but there wasn't time. I was finishing the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, and even after that, I went back to making nerd episodes, and I just realized that unless these nerd episodes can be less frequent, there's never going to be time for Board Games. So finally, once I got caught up, then the next year, we decided this time, instead of it being all about the nerd, let's bring back Board Games.
Everything's off the plate now. It's finally time to focus on Board Games and really give Board Games the center stage for once. Because before that, it was always focus on AVGN episodes. So it's nice that Board Games really got a chance to shine.
I knew that it had to be special at this time because it went on such a long break. And for the longest time, Dream Phone was the last episode. And that was such a good one that I felt that one set the bar very high. I had a lot to live up to. And I didn't want to repeat the same format over again.
I come in, James and Mike want nothing to do with me. I fuck everything up. There's a montage, and then I fuck everything up again. And I get hurt, or somebody gets hurt, or something. And we were conscious of the fact that we had done that so many times before, and we didn't want to beat a dead horse, so we were trying to find a new approach to it, I guess.
2015 started off the new year fresh, went into it with a whole month of just writing ideas and all kinds of backstories to the characters and things that you're not even going to see, all kinds of things that only I know, and writing out all these complicated stories. And I came up with this long story arc of how every time the characters die, they spawn inside of another board game. So it's a game within a game within a game.
After James told me the story arc and everything and all of his plans and the insanity behind it, I could see the excitement behind his eyes, so I was on board 100%.
Yeah! Now we're fucking talking! So when the series begins, it's sort of back to basics in the first episode. I didn't want to start it off too crazy. So with the Omega Virus one, it takes time before things start developing. I never wanted it to get in the way of where I didn't want it to lose focus of it being a show about board games. It's still about the board games, but now there's just a little more to it. Well, now it's not like I have anybody to play it with anyway, because... Never mind. Rather than bringing back Mike and Bootsy right in the first episode, I decided let's start it off with just Board James solo again, the way the series started out, and give people a chance to think maybe the other characters are really dead for good. Maybe they're not coming back.
And so I thought that was very interesting to have like a slow turning wheel and to begin it all like that.
I didn't do it! Let's see if I'm telling the truth. Or are you too scared?
Lie detector was like the next step. This one starts to present the idea that Board James may be guilty, and it actually flashes back to other episodes to show clips that support that theory.
I'm bored! I want to play a fucking board game!
And also to kind of try to give the idea maybe he is in prison still, maybe he's imagining everything that's happening, because we have a very highly imaginative character here, so he's capable of almost anything can happen in his world. And also at the end of this episode, what made it special was that there was a multiple ending.
I thought it was interesting, and it was almost an experiment. It was the only time we had ever done a YouTube video where at the end of the video there was annotations to go to two different endings. There was a true ending and a false ending, and we had never done that before, and I thought that was a really cool little experiment, and I think people really enjoyed that.
So the third episode was all about Domino Rally and the Ouija board. Now the Ouija board, of course, having supernatural powers.
A supernatural device that's led to violence, delirium, and summoning demons! Released by Parker Brothers.
It's very obvious, I think, that we had to use the Ouija board to do some kind of seance to contact the spirits of the dead, and that's how he gets in touch with Mike and Bootsy again. So I think that was the perfect way to bring them back through a board game, but it gets a lot more complicated than that because he descends into the Ouija board itself, into the Ouija's realm, and then it raises more questions.
Hey, mama. Well, let's rock and roll, baby.
A lot of times, because I'm such an Elvis fan, for Halloween I would dress up as Elvis. I'd have Elvis jumpsuits.
I'm all fucked up.
So for a long time, I think we wanted to do something with Elvis, and I was glad that finally, after all these years, we were able to do that.
Hunka bucket, fuck it.
It was really awesome that we got a fight between Mr. Bucket, Dream Phone, and Elvis. I mean, how epic is that?
I thought it was interesting to reintroduce Mike and Bootsy, not as themselves, but as other characters, and then they get sort of reverted back into their former selves, and that's when the series sort of gets reset back to basics. It wasn't the same without you guys.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Make way for the Wacky Blasters.
So the Wacky Blasters episode came next, and in this one, it was sort of just a return to the traditional style. It felt like we were making one of the older episodes again. The best part of that one was the ending with the whole leaf blower scene. For the leaf blower, there were not many effects. There were some digital effects with smoke and debris, but really all it was, we used the real leaf blower and just blew all kinds of things about the basement.
It was kind of like it is in the actual video, actually. It was just basically we did what you saw in the video, so it was just ridiculous to film that.
So there was all these sitcom board games. There was the Full House board game and the Family Matters board game. So we knew we had to do those.
The whole time when we were doing anything with Urkel or anything with Full House, we were just laughing the whole time because how can you not laugh? It was just a lot of fun.
Hike those pants up! Gotta hike up the pants! Hike up the pants!
We just look like a bunch of fucking weirdos wearing those glasses because, I mean, just look at it. I mean, what do I need to say? So in Full House, they always had the tender moment. It was like Michelle would do something wrong, and then Danny would come in, or Uncle Jesse, and he'd be like, "Oh, Michelle," and then the music would come on, and they'd have to teach her the lesson of the day or whatever. It was the same thing sort of in the episode. The music comes on, and like Bootsy and Mike are talking to Board James, and it was consoling him and all that. Meanwhile, we've got these fucking Urkel glasses on, and we just look like a couple of assholes, and it's just like this really bizarre, weird scene.
I wanted to create the most awkward scene possible. I wanted this to just be really, really weird.
You don't like feeling alone, right? Kind of really unsettling. I feel a little uncomfortable watching that.
And also, of course, that leads into the twist ending where it's sort of like the Fight Club ending where it's all him. And not even that was definitive. It was just meant to steer you in different directions. So that segued into the next episode of Board James being solo again for once more. And this was the video games episode because we had all these video game board games and we never knew exactly what to do with them. I was never sure, should it be a nerd episode? Should it be a Board James episode?
we knew for a long, long time that something had to be done with those board games. It was kind of like the Super Mario Brothers movie. James eventually reviewed that. We always knew that there was something that had to be done there. For a long time, James and I would have a discussion, should there be an AVGN episode about the Legend of Zelda board game and the Mario board game, or how is that going to be done? But it made the most sense, I think.
Because they're board games and they're based on video games, that it should be a board games and nerd crossover. A very cerebral crossover.
It's like trying to play a game of chess by yourself. Everything you do on one side counteracts the other.
It was the perfect way to make a hybrid between Board James and the angry video game nerd.
In the episode, Board James is sort of imagining the nerd, like in a thought cloud kind of thing, but as it progresses, he becomes more and more real, where the nerd is in the room interacting with Board James, and then by the end of it, they sort of fuse into the same character. Lots of people ask me if that's a prequel to the nerd, and you could interpret it that way, but I always felt that they were parallel to one another, that it's two personalities, almost like a Jekyll and Hyde type thing.
You got to make out of it what you will. Is Board James crazy? Is he really the nerd? Who knows? It's up for you to decide.
Now, 13 Dead End Drive, this is where things get really serious. So here, the premise is basically like the old Dark House murder mystery plot, where there's a bunch of people trapped in a house together. Here's just 3 guys in a basement, but it's sort of, playing on that archetype. And this is where Board James starts to become more ominous. Now he's actually becoming like very threatening to the other characters.
I just want to show you how the killing was done. That's all. It's just a game. It's just a game.
This was a very time-consuming one to shoot because there were lots and lots of shots. Lots of shots of the board games, lots of different angles of the basement. One part we're in the attic.
Hey guys!
There were a lot of visuals that we had to work hard to make work, like the bars on the doors. I remember I think Mike was in a puddle of mud outside of the window trying to hold the things up.
There's also a lot of hanging in this episode, and we had to think of ways to pretend to hang each other without actually hanging each other.
We had chairs to stand on. Each one of us, we had to kind of perfect the slow, slight sway.
So we're swaying back and forth on these chairs, and it was surreal. I just thought that here we are, 3 of us just alone in a basement, just going like this on these chairs. And I felt like it went on way longer than it should have. Like, we got the shot and it worked. It was actually pretty convincing. It looked good, I thought. And we had a monitor in front of us so we could all see what it looked like. And I was like, okay, that's good. And then Bootsy goes, no, wait. I'm still trying to, because we were all kind of like being perfectionists.
To me, that is the most disturbing episode. The sound of like cracking bones and the breaking necks and stuff. This is very disturbing to me.
It's almost a little too far because this is just it's a series where you got to remember the first episode was Mousetrap. It's an innocent little kids game. And then you turn it into a scene where we're all being hung by ropes. It's actually very morbid and very, I almost wonder people that started watching the show with Mousetrap. In fact, today, if somebody just saw the whole series for the first time and they see the first episode, oh, what's this Board James episode? Let me click on this, and they start with Mousetrap. By the time they get to the hanging scene, they're going to be like, what the fuck happened to this show? It was like talking about a little baby kid game that's fun for kids, and now they're being hung by a fucking noose, like, dead. It's like, Jesus, it's really kind of fucked up if you think about it. How can it even continue from there? They're all dead, right? It's explained in the Board James mythology video more in depth, but essentially they're all going into different worlds.
So for the following episode, the final one of the season and possibly the series, is Nightmare. And I call this one Nightmare and Beyond because there's so much more to it. But anyway, since they died while playing 13 Dead End Drive, they respawn into that game, and now I had to design the scenery so that everything looked like they were inside the game. So we got Kyle Justin to construct the sets, because he always helps out a lot behind the scenes. We recycled some of the set that we used in the Jekyll and Hyde movie trailer, and it was really cool seeing that thing all come together. It really looked like some kind of gothic horror film.
It's more production than would typically go into the average YouTube video. Even, with some of the stuff we had done in the past, I think that more production went into that video than possibly any other web video that we ever did. Kyle Justin did a great job with the set work and the set design and all that. I was like, oh boy, this is almost like shooting a movie here, not just a typical web video. And I was really impressed that James had really timed it all out. It was all scheduled. We're going to shoot this at this time. We're going to shoot this at this time.
I drew storyboards on index cards, very thick stack of cards, which meant lots of shots that we had to shoot. And obviously storyboards are meant to just show the basic idea of what's supposed to happen in the scene. They're not meant to be the greatest drawings. You just do them really quick. But it's meant to help categorize it so that you can shoot in order of, well, these are all shots that have Mike and Bootsy in them. These are shots with just me, so I can shoot this on my own. And this is all so that you can come up with a schedule to shoot. And also I color coded them all, so I put them all on different colored index cards for each scene. So each scene had a different color, so I knew which setup it was. So that would tell me if we were in the old dark house set, or if we were in the graveyard set, or on the green screen. All the colors match those.
It was very broken down. It was very prepared. And I think that most people wouldn't think about how much work and time went into 10-15 minute web video. It's really quite a production.
What's going on? What did you do to me? Relax. It's all just fun and games.
So this character is really obsessed with board games in a very unhealthy way, so I decided he should reenact the Operation game and do this operation on Mike. It's almost like a scene out of Saw or something like that. So I really wanted to come up with these really disturbing, horrific scenes.
I love to scream on camera. I feel that, I feel like I'm a really bad actor, but I'm a really good screamer, and I enjoy doing it too.
Oh, we're having fun, yeah!
When you tell Mike to scream, he'll scream. He does not bullshit around. Like, he will fucking scream, and then afterwards I'm like, Mike, that was wicked, man.
Oh God! Jesus fucking Christ!
Okay, that's good.
Because he's busy torturing me, and then he's like, oh, this asshole, he's gonna start up too, and he gives an awesome look there. And then the way he passes by the camera, just that whole part of the video, I think is my favorite part of the video. I love it.
We're just playing a game of hangman.
I was hoping we were going to play Candyland.
Now, in that same scene, he's playing real-life hangman with Bootsy, and Bootsy's hanging on this gallows pole, and what made that scene really complicated to shoot was that the part where I'm torturing Mike is in front of a black screen, so it's on like a set, and then the part where Bootsy was on a green screen because he had to have his limbs removed, so that was the only way we could think to do that was on a green screen. So when I'm looking at Mike, I'm looking at a set, but when I'm looking that way, I'm looking at a green screen. So we had to find a way to like sort of combine these two areas, and I always had to get the eye line right of which way I was looking, and it became very complicated because when you act on a green screen, you're looking off into nothing, and sometimes you'll be facing away from the green screen like this, the green is behind you, and other times you want to get the back, so you're looking off this way, and you always have to, you get confused very easily. Well, which way is Mike now? The operating table where Mike is that behind me now? Is that over on this side? So it's very hard to piece a scene like that all together. And then, of course, we got to hang Bootsy again.
I've worked with James for years, and I find myself with ropes around my neck, 2 or 3 times a year, it seems. Dream Phone was one of them, but here I was being hung again. I'm not trying to complain too much, but when you're standing there with a noose around your neck for hours at a time with like these poster boards, that are like digging in your skin and stuff, it gets really irritating, especially when one's on your leg and you're standing on one leg with a noose around. It was just really, really uncomfortable.
I guess you're really ahead of the game.
Oh, really fucking funny, asshole! So it was blocking my shoulders and the rest of my body, and I recall it digging into it. It was like just crudely cut paper, just digging into like my neck and everything, and it was just with the rope around it. It was just not a pleasant experience.
there's times when it's funny and we're laughing and everything, but then there's times like this where it's serious, where you got to hurry up and get the shot and move on. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have Candyland.
How do we do it on a low-budget, cheap indie set? How do we make Candyland? And the only way we could really think of was to do some drawings. So I did the drawings for the backgrounds. I was given instructions by James. I gave the drawings to a colorist, Bill Mudron, and he did a great job coloring them. He's a great colorist, and a lot of thanks to him for doing that work. There was a little bit of back and forth because when James went to put the Candyland drawings into the video, some things didn't quite work out. Like there might have been something that was a little off, and then I would have to go back and sort of touch things up and resize things, or maybe make a new drawing to make it all work out.
And so it was kind of important, if this was going to be the last episode, which it may be. James really wanted me to finish up with a Candyland jingle.
It was another moment where I wanted to create an awkward tone where it shifts back and forth, where, you know, they're getting tortured, but then they're, you know, dancing in this Candyland zone. It was complicated because the music had to cut back and forth. So we have this cheery music that Bootsy did, and then it would shift to the composer's music, Andreas Hedlund, who did the score for the entire episode. And we actually gave Bootsy's music to him, and then he was able to chop it up and make it sort of naturally, you know, segue into between being cheerful and horrifying. One of the most complicated shots during the Candyland shoot was Bootsy's death from being stabbed in the head by a lollipop. And we could not figure out how to get that lollipop to stick to his forehead.
And then we had, I think Mike was holding it by a string, but you could still see it move a little bit. It was just a total, just one of those things. And we thought, oh, maybe almost like Tornado Rex, so I'm holding it in my eye. It's just those little things. You see a shot like that for probably a second, and it's a shot that took I don't even know how long, too long to set up.
When they go into the Forbidden Bridge game, I knew that was going to be complicated. I knew by writing that I was asking for trouble. And there were mainly two sets. There was one where we had these poles on either side, and they would pretend that they're on there, but sometimes the poles would fall over, and it was tough.
It's not just lines. You're not just saying lines. You're trying to work with the set and trying to make it more believable for the camera.
Then there was the hanging bridge, when the bridge collapses and they're, you know, all hanging off like Gunga Din, you know, famously done later in Temple of Doom. And surprisingly, that part went relatively smooth. When you're working on a green screen, the good thing is that you could put yourself anywhere you want, you know, anywhere you can imagine, but the problem is always finding the background, and now you need to find that. And I would, you know, buy all kinds of stock photos and stock clips so that I could put things behind us, but sometimes you wouldn't be able to find what you're looking for. Like, I needed a shot of the bridge, like going this way. It didn't really exist. I couldn't find anything, so I had to create that. So I built this little miniature bridge, and that was it. I shot that, but that was like just a day right there that you never think of, you know, a whole day just to get a background for just a few shots. I had to find a way to get the statue into the scenery, because you have the board game version and then you have the real life version. Well, I didn't really have time to make a you know, sculpture or something, so I had to use the same one from the board game. I decided I'll just weather it up, put some, you know, dirt on it, and make it look like it's you know, it's a larger thing than it is. What made that tough was that the board game, the statue has this like base underneath of it, and I had to take all the screws out and disassemble that whole thing in order to get the statue into the ground, because there was a cave under it. It couldn't have the base. But then I had to put it back together to use it for the board game parts, because everything was kind of shot, you know, in different orders, and it's a mechanical thing, so it had to be put together right. Every sprocket, every spring had to go back in it. It was It was annoying. Then there's the part where the alligator kills Bootsy. Now, we had the stock footage, but we also needed some kind of puppet or something to attack him, and the cheapest way was actually to get a real alligator head.
And I had to hold it up to my neck, and it was the actual teeth there, and it was really sharp. That was really tricky because Mike had the pump, and he was shooting blood through the mouth of the alligator. As soon as James called action, I was supposed to be screaming, and Mike's shooting the blood, and it all went like fast and hard up my nose.
I can say after years and years of shooting gory, bloody videos since my teen years, that for some reason using Kool-Aid as blood, even though it seems to work really well, it stings. Like, you get it in your eyes, it stings, and also for some reason, when it's been around for a long time, it starts to smell really bad.
And that shit stinks too. It's like rotten eggs, whatever it is, like the food coloring. After the food coloring goes bad, I can't even describe to you how fucking bad that smells. Imagine having it stuck up your nose. Why do I work with this guy? Fucking. I hope this is the last episode.
At the time I'm shooting this, I think that the whole 2015 season of Board James is probably my best work that I've done on the web. This is an example of me not just giving in to the demand of making nerd videos, but to do what I really want to do. I mean, what I really want to do is make feature films, but you can't always do that because it takes years and years and years. So there always needs to be some kind of steady content. So this was the best way to work in an epic story that I have in mind into an episodic web series.
There were certain situations I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. I knew what was going on the surface, but I knew there was something deeper behind a lot of the scenes, and I didn't really want to know too much because I really wanted to enjoy the episodes when I saw them, when they were finished and edited, and try to figure things out for myself. And I like that you could go back and watch it and get something new every time that you see it. And so I really enjoy that. I really enjoy how the series, or season rather, ended. I think it was really strong, and I really commend James for having that story arc and really fulfilling his vision with this.
It's such a non-linear video, and it's all over the place, and there's so much going on. It's really, I thought it was amazing how James figured that out and wrote it in the first place, because I couldn't really grasp it myself until I saw the finished product, and I thought that he pulled it off really, really well.